Our brothers and sisters, you got your boy Freddie Coleman on with Keyshawn Johnson, Charlie All-No in for Stephen A, Max, and Molly on First Take. Man, we got so many things to talk about. You got Chris Paul on his way to the NBA Finals for the first time in his legacy career, although he did not need to add to his legacy as far as I'm concerned. We're definitely going to dive into that. The Milwaukee Bucks, no Giannis in Game 5. Does that mean they have no chance of beating the Atlanta Hawks and get to the NBA Finals themselves? We're definitely going to dive into that. And college players about to have the best part-time jobs ever in the history of part-time jobs. Me, Keyshawn, and Charlie, First Take starts now.
We come together even more so in these moments. This team is made up of toughness.
We have to realize we're trying to close out a series. We have to do whatever it takes.
Chris Paul once again from downtown. Booker uses the screen beautifully and flushes.
This is the deal. We don't give up.
Paul step back three-pointer, puts it in, and the foul.
Chris Paul is in the NBA Finals. What do you think when you hear that sentence?
Man, it sounds damn good. Damn good.
Damn good. I like it. Chris Paul feeling himself after that win. The drought is now over, well, at least for one team. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take. I'm Charlie Arnold, joined here in studio by Keyshawn Johnson. We also got Freddie Coleman joining us from Bristol. And how you guys doing this morning? What a game last night.
Good, not bad. I mean, it was a great game, I would say. Chris Paul dropping 41 buckets on him, but at the same time, making sure that the young guns was cooking. I mean, you got to, it was, put it this way. Mm-hmm. I loved everything about it except Chris Paul's poster. And here's why I would say the post game I didn't like. You want to know why, Freddie?
Why?
Because I needed him to cry.
No,
Give me the tears and the snot.
The man has cried for 16 years.
But I needed him to really squeeze them tears out for me because I'm so damn happy for him.
Well, I'm so damn happy that me and you were coordinated this morning. Look at this. Looking good here in studio. Freddie, wish you were here. But, guys, let's get to the game because after 16 years, Chris Paul finally in the NBA Finals. A stellar game 6 performance by the Suns. CP3 on fire, dropping 41 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, and 3 steals in the 130-103 win over the Clips. The 36-year-old guard was rolling in the third quarter, hitting 3 3-pointers, going on an 8-0 run to close it out by himself. And as I said, CP3 definitely feeling himself after that performance.
Chris Paul is in the NBA Finals. What do you think when you hear that sentence?
Man, it sounds damn good. Damn good. It's been a lot of work, man. A lot of work. Going to a new team, everybody staying the course. That team fight hard. T. Lou, unbelievable coach. Chauncey Billups, my big brother. So many ties to that team. But damn, this feels good.
What kind of mission were you on?
Don't lose. Don't lose mission. You know what I'm saying? Damn, that feel good. I wish my son and my family come down here. I don't know, man. It's just a lot of emotions, a lot of injuries. I was getting an MRI yesterday on my wrist. A lot of shit going on. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I just want to get over there with my team, Rach. Respect. Appreciate you.
He was done with that interview. Keyshawn, what did Chris Paul's performance prove?
Well, first of all, his leadership, right? He comes over from OKC, and you didn't really know. You're like, okay, the Suns were 8-0 in the bubble. What leadership could he bring? And then you look up, and they study just chipping along as the season goes. And you're sitting there saying to yourself, okay, this team is for real. So you now have to push out everything and all the doubt in your mind out the way. And now he's a little bit older. So you're like, well, can Chris Paul do some things? Now playoff time comes. He hurts his shoulder. That becomes problematic. He stays in the game. They knock down the Lakers. They take care of business against the Lakers. And then they move forward. And now you look up and he's in the finals. When you talk about Chris Paul, you can't talk about him without saying, but he has yet to get to a final. Now you can. And now the conversation is, can he win a final to go along with everything else that he's done as in his NBA career? He's been nothing but a leader, whether it's on or off the court. And so you can tell based on the 2 games he missed that he led this team prior to missing those 2 games because they took whatever little bit that he gave them and applied it to be able to go up 2-0. And when they went up 2-0 and he came back in that first game and things was a little bit slow and people was questioning whether or not it was the right mix and chemistry at that point in time. And now you can see why he got back on the floor, dropping 41 points on their head and getting out of there against the team that he used to play for. So I'm sure it was bittersweet, but he still got to give me them tears.
Well, he's not going to cry. He's a damn good number one, Keyshawn. So you may want those tears, my brother, but you're not going to get them with all 123 postseason games he finally gets to the NBA Finals. Two things. Number one, State Farm premiums are going to go up because of what Chris Paul's able to do, getting his team to the NBA Finals for the first time in his career. So that's number one. But number two, his legacy didn't need to be proved anything to me, and here's why. Chris Paul's always been that kind of guy that people have always said, okay, does he have too much of an edge? Is he too much of a leader? Does he have too much of the basketball? Does he hog it the whole 9 yards? I'm thinking, well, you're one of the greatest point guards of all time. Things are going to be a lot better when the ball is going to be in his hands. And what did he do? He closed out the Denver Nuggets by closing out in that series by winning 4 in a row against that team. And then when they had to have it last night, it's one thing to have 41. You put a 41 burger against the Clippers, but you go 7 of 8 from the three-point line. You also have no turnovers in 35 minutes of action when you control everything. They tried everything possible to stop you. And I can't even imagine, Charlie and Keyshawn, what the narrative would have sounded like if they did not win this series, because I firmly believe if they did not win Game 6 last night, I could see the Phoenix Suns losing in 7 because that pressure would have been immense. I don't know if they would have been able to handle it very well. And for the first time, the Clippers would not have to worry about pressure being on them when it comes to a playoff series because everybody was waiting for that team to clip, and they didn't do it. They fought hard. So for me, his performance doesn't have to prove anything to me. He's been a top 5 point guard on my list all time in the history of the NBA. But I'm glad that he was able to get through and break through, Key and Charlie, because if he didn't, if they had lost a 3-1 lead to his former team, I can't even imagine what that narrative would have sounded like next to people saying, yep, that's why Chris Paul can never do it. He was never able to do it because he had a 3-1 lead with a team better than the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard, and they were not able to get the NBA Finals with everything on their side in this series.
Well, you should never worry about the narrative as a professional player because everybody's got something to say. I think his body of work speaks for itself. There's no question about it. That's one of the reasons Chris Paul said, don't even talk to me about 3-1 because we have business to finish. And so when you look at it, he was able to deliver the goods in the brightest moments. Go to a few games.
The sunniest moments, if you will.
Or the sunniest moments, if that's a good one there, Charlie. If you look at it, though, the big-time players in situations, not all finished the deal. But when Kevin Durant's back was against the wall, he basically came out when he was the Lone Ranger and dropped 40-plus on their head, in Milwaukee's head. When you think about Paul George, everybody was talking negative about him. PG didn't have Kawhi. He came out and did his work and dropped 40. I mean, when we start to look at that sort of thing with veteran players that know what it will take to get things done, Chris Paul did it again last night. Okay, down the stretch, the Clippers closed the gap, I think, to about 7 points. He turned on the gas. He had 14 of the 16 points in that stretch. That shows you leadership. He look what he did for DeAndre Ayton since coming over from OKC. Mm-hmm. DeAndre Ayton gave him credit about him being able to get him to play a certain way. So it's like this is more to me than just basketball legacy on and off the court. You made a joke about State Farm. That's important. Those little bitty things are so important in professional sports. What are you on and off the court? What are you in your community? And he's been nothing but the best.
Keyshawn, I'll echo this standpoint, what you had to say from when it comes to Chris Paul this way. I think people seem to forget how many times he's had those clutch kind of moments when he played the Houston Rockets. They didn't get the NBA Finals, and everybody pointed the finger at him saying it was your fault. And everybody was saying, well, wait a minute. The reason that you were even in competition with Golden State was when Chris Paul was going off, they couldn't guard him. They had a hard time guarding him. And then when he got injured, they weren't the same basketball team. But they blamed him for that. When things didn't go well with the Clippers, he was there for 6 years. When things went haywire at the end, plenty of people pointed the finger at him thinking, well, the reason you were competitive and people even talking about you in that way was because of what Chris Paul brought to the table. People forgot about that, or they wanted to forget about that because there are plenty of people out there that did not want to see Chris Paul ever get to the NBA Finals. Even last night, when he made Patrick Beverley give him the two-hand shove because Patrick Beverley pulled that punk move because he was so frustrated that Chris Paul gave him that business. He gave him that church in the fourth quarter, and there was nothing that Patrick Beverley could do about it, and he had no other recourse but to get in touch with his inner bouncer at the end of the night, throwing people out of the club because Chris Paul's putting it on him. So Chris Paul's able to do that to Patrick Beverley because so many people did not want Chris Paul to get to the NBA Finals. They wanted to have that conversation. Yeah, great point guard, great player, can never get it done in key moments. He had done that before. It shouldn't have taken last night for people to remember how many clutch moments Chris Paul's had in his NBA career, even though this performance finally put him over the top in terms of getting the NBA Finals for the first time in his Hall of Fame career.
I wonder what he said to Patrick
I didn't
Beverley.
look like he said anything. I think Patrick Beverley was just salty.
No, he said something. He said something. I'm gonna ask CP3 when I see him.
Yeah,
what
please.
did you say?
Please ask.
You know what it is? He says something that when you say you're at a barbecue and it's a relative you don't like, and you mention something, then they throw potato salad at you. That was along those lines from Chris Paul. He said something that Patrick Beverley did not want to get past because he was right. Chris Paul threw facts in his face. And
Well, look, Chris Paul is unbothered at this point because right now the Suns are the first team in history to miss the postseason for the past 10 seasons and then make the NBA Finals. And not only that, but of course, this is Chris Paul's first Finals appearance in his career. But the drought does continue for the Clippers. It now stands at 51 years of missing the NBA Finals. So, Freddie, what is the key for the Clippers title run next season?
Well, Keyshawn will tell you more than ever before, Charlie and Keyshawn, it's a second year when it comes to NBA championships and opportunity windows. It's no longer year-to-year game. The game is second to second. But if you're going to be the Clippers, it's not so much about Kawhi Leonard coming back. That's key. But I think the most important thing for them to be a championship team or contend next year is Ty Lue, their head coach. Guys want to play for that guy. Guys understand that he's always going to have their back. And yes, you need talent. But he has shown the ability not only to coach talented players, but coach players up. What Monty Williams was able to do in Phoenix, look what Ty Lue did for Reggie Jackson. Look what he did for Marcus Morris. Even Boogie Cousins was getting running. He played well in the last couple of games for the Los Angeles Clippers. They don't do this, in my opinion, if Doc Rivers is still the head coach. And that's not trying to slight Doc Rivers. It's just that certain guys have a better feel for a certain team and a certain way to coach players, especially with that organization. And yeah, you can't miss Kawhi Leonard and say, yeah, we're going to miss the 30 points and 57% that he shot from each game. Yeah, those things are going to happen. We're going to miss that. But they were that close to scaring the Phoenix Suns and maybe getting the NBA Finals. To me, that's the most important key. Because if you're the Clippers, you want to make sure that this opportunity is there, and you got to grab and hold on to it like your owner Steve Ballmer did to his friend's legs last night in that ball game. You got to do the same thing if you're the Clippers. And if you're going to do that, you have the right coach in Ty Lue, that guys like Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Reggie Jackson, and even though Patrick barely had that move, they want to go through a wall for that guy. To me, that's the most important aspect if the Clippers are going to do this again next year, when each and every year it's a second-by-second situation when it comes to competing and winning championships, no matter what sport it is.
They got to run it back. They got to run it back with Ty Lue, Kawhi Leonard, PG. Maybe there's some tweaks along the lines of a couple role-type players, but that's the mindset. First of all, you got to get healthy. Then you got to convince Kawhi that this is about the long term. We did everything we needed to do. We got rid of the coach and Doc Rivers. We went out and got Paul George. We did everything. Now we need to just run it back, stay healthy, and play it up. Because when you missing somebody like a Kawhi Leonard in your lineup, chances are it's gonna be tough. In professional basketball, you need 2 or 3 guys. And when you got one guy out there in Paul George and a bunch of role players that can assist along the way, and you going up against juggernauts in terms of DeAndre Ayton, Booker, Chris Paul, that's hard to beat. That's so hard to beat, and I think they know that. And I think they've seen that. It was unfortunate what happened in the situation because I'm sure a lot of Clipper fans certainly thought that the Clippers were on their way, especially since they avoided the Lakers. That's just a little shot at the Clippers for avoiding the Lakers, even though the Lakers didn't advance as far as the Clippers did. So you're building onto something. Don't all of a sudden backtrack by doing something that you shouldn't be doing. Just get healthy, run it back, convince Kawhi he needs to be there long term and not take his talents to South Beach or no other city.
How much that bothered you, Key, that you as a Lakers fan, the Clippers advanced and they were that close to getting the NBA Finals?
No, it
doesn't bother you?
Good for them. I'm glad that they got out of the second round. Hats off to you.
Keyshawn, that could have been you. That could have been you courtside who Steve Ballmer would have grabbed your leg.
I'm not, Charlie, I'm from LA. And I have not ever been to a Clippers game at Staples Center. I went to Clipper games at the Sports Arena, but not since they've been in the Staples Center building, so I wouldn't have been there. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right, fair enough. So that would not have been you.
No
chance. No. All right, guys, well, let's move on to the East because we have a winner in the West. The East, though, the series tied up at 2 apiece. Game 5 tipping off in Milwaukee tonight. The Hawks able to pull it off Tuesday without Trae Young. Injuries, though, do remain the focus tonight. Trae Young, Clint Capella, both listed as questionable for the Hawks. Meanwhile, Giannis is listed as doubtful for the Bucks. So, Keyshawn, who is the most important player in Game 5 tonight?
I think it's Lemon Pepper Lou Williams. I think that is the most important guy, especially if Trae Young can't go or Trae Young is hobbled to a degree. I think Lou Williams came out, started that game, did a terrific job, dropping 20-plus points on the Bucks. If he can continue to do that, I think a lot of us have seen him in a secondary role as coming off the bench, but now as a starter, he can do the same things he was doing coming off the bench, only he's a starter. It's very important because he knows how to play. He's a high-volume scorer. He plays defense at times, but scoring is so important. Getting half of what Trae Young can get you goes a long ways. That's why he's the most important player for me.
Definitely for Atlanta, Key, but I'm going to say the most important player in Game 5 is not Lou Williams, although I love the lemon pepper reference, well done by you. It's not Chris Middleton, who has to step up in the absence of Giannis Antetokounmpo. To me, it's got to be Brook Lopez. You can't be big like a statue and play like a statue like we saw from him in Game 4. And you could say that about the whole Bucks team, but Trae Young's not out there. That's a chance to go for the kill, and they never had the lead in that game. If you're Brook Lopez, you have the ability, not just shooting threes, but scoring inside and taking that pressure off Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. Why are you not doing that if you're Brook Lopez? You have ability. You don't need to just stand out there and jack up threes all the time. That should come within the offense. But when you post up, there's nobody out there that should have the ability to guard you and also rim protect, like we've seen from him at times. I expect Chris Middleton is going to be terrific. I don't care who's guarding him. But if you're Brook Lopez, this is your chance to say, hey, I'm getting a double-double tonight. They can't stop me on the inside. I'm not just going to stand out there and take the easy way out and make threes. If he has any kind of force with his height and his ability to go inside and put fouls on Clint Capella and the interior of that line of the Atlanta Hawks, he makes things a lot easier for Chris Middleton and for his coach Mike Budenholzer. Do I expect that he's going to do that? I have my doubts about that because I've seen Brook Lopez just stay out there and wait for the basketball. Dude, you got to demand the basketball. You got to be that important player to be that Robin to the Batman that's going to be Chris Middleton. If you don't do that, then you're expecting other people to do that. Then that says a lot about you, Brook Lopez, and it doesn't say anything good if you take a step back instead of taking a step forward when I know you have the capability and the ability to do that in an important game. In the Game 5 for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Bogdanovic is there along the way as well as Lou Williams. So he's healthy now. His high volume shooting, spreading the floor, that gives them all sorts of problems on the Bucks end. Plus, when you think about Milwaukee and Coach Bud and some of the things and adjustments he's been able to not make for Milwaukee is problematic too. So he becomes an important part of what could potentially take place tonight from a coaching standpoint. Can you somehow figure out how to get Drew Holiday involved? Can Drew Holiday come up to the party and account for that $100+ million that they gave him to be the star player since coming over from New Orleans? That's an issue that have been for the Bucks. Let's see where that goes as an important player in this game tonight.
And that's why with Coach Bud, that's why I picked the Hawks to win in 6 before the series got started, because I didn't trust him that if things got tight, that he would be able to dial up the right play or have the right kind of motivation. Because look at the guy on the other side, Nate McMillan. They knew they were not going to have Trae Young in Game 4, and those guys came out there ready to fight and win. And Coach Budenholzer and Milwaukee took a step back. Now you're not going to have Giannis in Game 5. Does anybody inside and outside of Milwaukee trust that Coach Budenholzer is going to have the right kind of plays and the right kind of mindset to help your basketball team? Until I actually see that, I'm not buying it. And that's why before the series got started, I picked the Hawks to win in 6. I trusted Nate McMillan, what he's been able to do taking over this franchise in the middle of the year. And I give the Hawks a lot of credit, Key and Charlie. They did not keep a mistake in the building with Lloyd Pierce. Lloyd Pierce is a nice guy, but when you're 14-20 and players don't want to play for you, at a certain point you can't keep that mistake in the building. They bring in Nate McMillan, which makes the Pacers look foolish because they made him a scapegoat last year, and now they're on the Another coach after Nate McMillan. He had that team always prepared and always ready with next man up. They lost Trae Young, no problem. They win game 4. They lose DeAndre Hunter in the series before. They beat Philadelphia to get to this point. So that's why I didn't trust Mike Budenholzer, because I know what Nate McMillan can do. I have not seen it from Mike Budenholzer unless things are so much in his favor being the front runner. When things are tight and that pressure is there, it seems that he's too nice of a guy to have people have trust in him in a tight situation when it comes to his coaching acumen.
The great thing about it for Milwaukee is they're at home. The home crowd can get into it. Chris Middleton has struggled on the road and shooting the ball in the playoffs. He's done a terrific job at home.
He did great in game 3.
Hopefully, like you said, Charlie, game 3, he can duplicate that tonight in game 5 and then see where they go from there.
Well, actually, the only player on the Bucks squad to consistently perform well at home this series so far has been Jrue Holiday. He had 55 points in the first 2 games in Milwaukee. So we'll see what happens there. Guys, let's keep it rolling. We have a lot more to get to. Reggie Bush taking to Twitter last night to voice his feelings on the NCAA ruling. How much could he have earned at USC? Do you even want to know? Well, guess what? We're going to tell you coming up. Plus, some college basketball legends would have gotten paid in their day if this rule was in place. Who would have made the most? The guys debate that coming up as First Take rolls on.
Of the NCAA, and that is not an understatement, Fitz. Because of what is crumbling today, the model of the NCAA is coming down, and you can never put it back up again. The fact that the NCAA is really worthless after today is also a very significant moment. At the end of all of this, it really doesn't matter whether there are rules or not, because no one is really in charge. Who is going to enforce these rules? It is going to be the wild, wild west. The athletes are going to make money, and the schools are going to be looking around like, what can we do about it? And the answer is nothing.
Okay, so a little too late for many athletes. USC standout and Heisman Trophy winner Reggie Bush had this to say on Twitter when the ruling came down. Well, look what we have here. Meanwhile, University of Kentucky phenom Rex Chapman tweeted this: could have made $1 bazillion in college on my name, image, and likeness. Oh, man. All right, well, let's hear from USC wide receiver extraordinaire Keyshawn Johnson on his reaction to this pivotal ruling. Key?
They need to give me mine.
What do you want?
I need my money.
How much?
I need a lot of it all the way back from when I was in school till today. I mean, no, seriously, I'm excited about it. I think these student athletes deserve every single penny, both on the female side of the game as well as on the male side of the game, both in the Power 4 sports as well as in somewhat the non-traditional sports. I mean, when you think about it, the cash in for some of these star players in the big markets is going to be unbelievable. You think about SEC country for football. You think about out west for some of the sports that they play, the tennis, the golf, the things that are not your traditional sports. Reggie Bush is right. What type of money Reggie Bush would have made in college from endorsing a product? Matt Lyon, Heisman Trophy winners. Just think about it for a minute. You didn't have to worry about those sort of things that took place because everybody would have gotten the payday that they deserved. Rex Chapman is 100% right. He was a star player at Kentucky at a big-time basketball program. And when you think about it, we got none of that money. They're selling T-shirts, jerseys, you name it. Bobblehead dolls. I went back to USC. This was maybe 3 years ago. And they have a suite named after me. I got none of that money when they sold that suite. You walk in the suite, there's jerseys hanging up, there's pictures of me. They didn't come to me and say, hey, is it okay to do this? They just did it. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything is shaped up and navigate, how they will be able to navigate through everything. But I'm excited about it, Freddie. I can't wait to see the first time a big-time athlete cashes in at another level.
Well, we're starting to see it now, Key, because Derek King, the quarterback for Miami, just signed a deal to give him $20,000 off the jump. Bo Nix, the quarterback of Auburn, has already signed a deal to have Milo iced tea, where he's going to say, this is the best sweet tea in the Southeast. I'm Bo Nix, the Auburn quarterback. But here's something else that people don't realize. There are going to be 4 states that are really going to benefit. Schools in 4 states are really going to benefit. Schools in Florida, Texas, Washington, and Tennessee. Why? No state income tax, which means that you get to keep all your money you're going to make in terms of that. You don't think that's not a recruiting advantage for every school in Texas, every school in Florida? If you're a young man or young woman coming out of high school, and let's say your choices are Georgia and Florida State, and you think about going to Florida State and somebody says, you come here, Mr. or Miss, and we're going to have you endorse our product and we give you that kind of money, and you realize you can keep the majority of your money, all of it, in those 4 states, that's a seismic thing in terms of that with those 4 states, especially the 2 speed states I talked about when it comes to Florida and Texas. So that's number 1. Number 2, and I go back to what Paul Feinbaum, Keith, said on your show, how seismic this is for the NCAA. It eliminates the NCAA in terms of they never want athletes to get paid anyway. Now, athletes can have the best part-time jobs ever, and the NCAA can say, well, we don't have to pay you guys. Other people are going to do it for us. That doesn't mean that your power structure is going to go completely out of the window, because to Paul's point and Key to your point, now that power structure is non-existent in the NCAA. You may be in charge of organizing championships and having sites, but if somebody comes along and says, we'll pay you X amount of dollars to have a championship here, what is the school going to do? What is the conference going to do? They're going to go where the money is. Anytime you want to solve problems in big-time college athletics, you follow the money trail. And that's exactly what's happening here. I'm not going to fault anybody for making money off their name. And Key, I'm not going to fault you for wanting reparations for what you didn't get at USC. I clearly understand that, because for the longest time, the NCAA has made billions and billions of dollars off the backs of you and other athletes out there, male and female, in either power sports or non-power sports or non-revenue generating sports. At a certain point, it has come home to roost, which means that Mark Emmert, you should worry about your job security. You've been stealing money in charge of NCAA as a president for a long, long time. Brother, those days are over, and even he knows it, and that's why he is really skittish about this going on right now with the NIL.
The fascinating thing about it, Charlie and Freddie, is I don't even think people realize that if you are tied to a university as a booster, you can contribute. If you have a business, let's say, for instance, Keyshawn Johnson's tied to USC, and I have a business in apparel, and I want to sign somebody from USC's team to an apparel deal that does not conflict with the school's licensing agreement with that company, whether it's Nike, Adidas, or whatever the case. In our case at USC is Nike. I can do that free will, and I can pay what I want to pay, and there's nothing the NC2A or anybody else can do about it. Now, within rules, clearly, things will be done. But imagine some of those programs with those coaches that have the ability, and friends that have the ability with that university's contact to be able to say, I now own this dealership. We have 500 dealerships across the state, and we want you to endorse this product because you're special. But there's an end to it because the coach has a relationship and that individual has a relationship with the athletic department. They don't have to go through all the red tape anymore. It's simple and easy. See, I love that. I love that because our university at USC and all the powerful people that we have from an alumni standpoint own a ton of businesses that I'm sure they wanted to help student athletes in a legal way get things done, and now they can.
It's sort of like in the Ivy League where you have Harvard and Yale, where how many alums will help out students there at Harvard and Yale, where say, hey, you're doing a great job here. Guess what? I got a job for you. I got a proposition for you. I got a place where you can help us and we can help you at the same time. Key and Charlie, that's what this is from that standpoint, because Key, I didn't even think about that. If you're a coach or anybody in the athletic department, you have a tie with somebody, all of a sudden you can say, hey, this is going to benefit everybody. And you know what that's going to do? It becomes the best recruiting tool. No longer do you have to go out and beg 17, 18-year-olds. You can say, hey, we made X amount of dollars, and by the way, we still won national championships or competed for national championships. That becomes another recruiting tool that you can use as a university and an athletic department, because they can say, hey, my friend went there and he benefited, but then everybody benefited. Man, I can't wait to get a part of that. You just follow the money line. And coaches, Keith, you know this, coaches aren't stupid. They make
it's not even, Freddie, it's not even coaches aren't stupid. People that support universities in sports, a specific sport, they follow the recruiting trail.
True, absolutely.
All the websites and everything.
Yep.
All they got to do is pick up the phone and have a conversation. They don't have to promise anything, guarantee anything. A conversation. Just a simple conversation.
What do you guys think this is going to do to the locker room dynamic? You think that other players might be jealous of what other guys are making now that all this is coming into play?
I think that just like in professional sports, Charlie, you got to know your position. Everybody's not Bo Nix, right? Everybody's not Justin Fields or everybody's not that. So you got to know your lane and who you are. And I think for the most part, these young student athletes will know. You know, you'll know in team sport, individual sport. There's going to be guys at Stanford that's extremely good in golf that sets them up for an opportunity to go and sign with some golf company that make clubs. And then there'll be other guys that have to stick to what the school supplies for them because that's what it is. And as long as you know that, I don't think there'll ever be any problems.
There's always going to be friction in the locker room because you just have human beings. I mean, Key, you and I both know this. You can have friction in the locker room because somebody's girl dumped you for somebody else. That'll cause friction in the locker room. I'm serious. I mean,
I don't know nothing about all that.
That's something you never have to worry about. That's my life, not your life from that standpoint. But you're always going to have friction in the locker room. And if you're worried about money causing more friction in the locker room, then you don't know the human being. You don't know the human element. There's always going to be something that somebody gets side-eyed about, and then they're going to say, hey, what's going on here? That's not going to cause more of an issue because there's always going to be some kind of friction in a locker room. Now, somebody does not like the fact that somebody is going to benefit more of their name, then you know what, be better. You got to be better as an athlete. You got to be better putting your name out there. If you can't do that, as my dad told me a long time ago, son, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. You got to handle your you problem and not to let it affect me from that standpoint.
Now let me be negative Nate.
Okay.
The only problem I have with this out of everything is the student athletes staying focused. Focus on the job at hand. Because we all know, Charlie, what social media, which social media is going to...
Let's take Ben Simmons as an example. We were just talking about it yesterday. He made the money, and then look what happened.
Social media drives is going to drive a lot of this.
Yep.
Where's your focus?
Yep.
Where's your focus? Not that you're going to stop going to practice because there's an appearance. Not that. More about somebody, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good player that's out there, just a good player on a team somewhere.
Right.
He tweets out that he got a deal with, or Instagram out that he has a deal with an ice cream company. And then all of a sudden, that individual's watching him and looking at it, because it happens in professional sports with agencies where professional athletes don't like another professional athlete getting something they thought they should have gotten, and they lose focus.
Sure.
We see it in everyday society. People stuck on their damn phones, looking at Instagram, poking and swiping and doing all that sort of stuff. And then all of a sudden, their appearance changed because they saw somebody else's appearance change that monetized that and made money off of it. So they think they're going to do it. That's the only problem that I have with these young student athletes is the focus, because you came to the university to do something. To go to the next level, to the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, track and field, Olympic swimming. Now, all of a sudden, you're getting sidetracked, and you're not really focused in on those things. You're worried about whether or not you're going to get an endorsement deal.
Of the NCAA, and that is not an understatement, Fitz. Because of what is crumbling today, the model of the NCAA is coming down, and you can never put it back up again. The fact that the NCAA is really worthless after today is also a very significant moment. At the end of all of this, it really doesn't matter whether there are rules or not, because no one is really in charge. Who is going to enforce these rules? It is going to be the wild, wild west. The athletes are going to make money, and the schools are going to be looking around like, what can we do about it? And the answer is nothing.
Okay, so a little too late for many athletes. USC standout and Heisman Trophy winner Reggie Bush had this to say on Twitter when the ruling came down. Well, look what we have here. Meanwhile, University of Kentucky phenom Rex Chapman tweeted this: could have made $1 bazillion in college on my name, image, and likeness. Oh, man. All right, well, let's hear from USC wide receiver extraordinaire Keyshawn Johnson on his reaction to this pivotal ruling. Key?
They need to give me mine.
What do you want?
I need my money.
How much?
I need a lot of it all the way back from when I was in school till today. I mean, no, seriously, I'm excited about it. I think these student athletes deserve every single penny, both on the female side of the game as well as on the male side of the game, both in the Power Four sports as well as in somewhat the non-traditional sports. I mean, when you think about it, the cash in for some of these star players in the big markets is going to be unbelievable. You think about SEC country for football. You think about out west for some of the sports that they play, the tennis, the golf, the things that are not your traditional sports. Reggie Bush is right. What type of money Reggie Bush would have made in college from endorsing a product? Matt Lyon, Heisman Trophy winners. Just think about it for a minute. You didn't have to worry about those sort of things that took place because everybody would have gotten the payday that they deserved. Rex Chapman is 100% right. He was a star player at Kentucky at a big-time basketball program. And when you think about it, we got none of that money. They're selling T-shirts, jerseys, you name it. Bobblehead dolls. I went back to USC. This was maybe 3 years ago. And they have a suite named after me. I got none of that money when they sold that suite. You walk in the suite, there's jerseys hanging up, there's pictures of me. They didn't come to me and say, hey, is it okay to do this? They just did it. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything is shaped up and navigate, how they would be able to navigate through everything. But I'm excited about it, Freddie. I can't wait to see the first time a big-time athlete cashes in at another level.
Well, we're starting to see it now, Key, because Derek King, the quarterback from Miami, just signed a deal to give him $20,000 off the jump. Bo Nix, the quarterback of Auburn, has already signed a deal to have Milo iced tea where he's going to say, this is the best sweet tea in the Southeast. I'm Bo Nix, the Auburn quarterback. But here's something else that people don't realize. There are going to be 4 states that are really going to benefit. Schools in 4 states are really going to benefit. Schools in Florida, Texas, Washington, and Tennessee. Why? No state income tax, which means that you get to keep all your money you're going to make in terms of that. You don't think that's not a recruiting advantage for every school in Texas, every school in Florida? If you're a young man or young woman coming out of high school, and let's say your choices are Georgia and Florida State, and you think about going to Florida State and somebody says, you come here, Mr. or Miss, and we're going to have you endorse our product and we give you that kind of money, and you realize you can keep the majority of your money, all of it, in those 4 states, that's a seismic thing in terms of that with those 4 states, especially the 2 speed states I talked about when it comes to Florida and Texas. So that's number 1. Number 2, and I go back to what Paul Feinbaum, Keith, said on your show, how seismic this is for the NCAA. It eliminates the NCAA in terms of they never want athletes to get paid anyway. Now, athletes can have the best part-time jobs ever, and the NCAA can say, well, we don't have to pay you guys. Other people are going to do it for us. That doesn't mean that your power structure is going to go completely out of the window because, to Paul's point and Key to your point, now that power structure is non-existent in the NCAA. You may be in charge of organizing championships and having sites, but if somebody comes along and says, we'll pay you X amount of dollars to have a championship here, what is the school going to do? What is the conference going to do? They're going to go where the money is. Anytime you want to solve problems in big-time college athletics, you follow the money trail. And that's exactly what's happening here. I'm not going to fault anybody for making money off their name. And Key, I'm not going to fault you for wanting reparations for what you didn't get at USC. I clearly understand that, because for the longest time, the NCAA has made billions and billions of dollars off the backs of you and other athletes out there, male and female, in either power sports or non-power sports or non-revenue generating sports. At a certain point, it has come home to roost, which means that Mark Emmert, you should worry about your job security. You've been stealing money in charge of NCAA as a president for a long, long time. Brother, those days are over, and even he knows it, and that's why he is really skittish about this going on right now with the NIL.
The fascinating thing about it, Charlie and Freddie, is I don't even think people realize that if you are tied to a university as a booster, you can contribute. If you have a business, let's say, for instance, Keyshawn Johnson's tied to USC, and I have a business in apparel, and I want to sign somebody from USC's team to an apparel deal that does not conflict with the school's licensing agreement with that company, whether it's Nike, Adidas, or whatever the case. In our case at USC is Nike. I can do that free will, and I can pay what I want to pay. And there's nothing the NC2A or anybody else can do about it. Now, within rules, clearly, things will be done. But imagine some of those programs with those coaches that have the ability and friends that have the ability with that university's contact to be able to say, I now own this dealership. We have 500 dealerships across the state, and we want you to endorse this product because you're special, but there's an end to it because the coach has a relationship and that individual has a relationship with the athletic department. They don't have to go through all the red tape anymore. It's simple and easy. See, I love that. I love that because our university at USC and all the powerful people that we have from an alumni standpoint own a ton of businesses that I'm sure they wanted to help student athletes in a legal way get things done, and now they can.
It's sort of like in the Ivy League where you have Harvard and Yale, where how many alums will help out students there at Harvard and Yale, where say, hey, you're doing a great job here. Guess what? I got a job for you. I got a proposition for you. I got a place where you can help us and we can help you at the same time. Key and Charlie, that's what this is from that standpoint, because Key, I didn't even think about that. If you're a coach or anybody in the athletic department, you have a tie with somebody, all of a sudden you can say, hey, this is going to benefit everybody. And you know what that's going to do? It becomes the best recruiting tool. No longer do you have to go out and beg 17, 18-year-olds. You can say, hey, we made X amount of dollars, and by the way, we still won national championships or competed for national championships. That becomes another recruiting tool that you can use as a university and an athletic department, because they can say, hey, my friend went there and he benefited, but then everybody benefited. Man, I can't wait to get a part of that. You just follow the money line. And coaches, Key, you know this, coaches aren't stupid. They make
it's not even, Freddie, it's not even coaches aren't stupid. People that support universities in sports, a specific sport, they follow the recruiting trail.
True, absolutely.
All the websites and everything.
Yep.
All they got to do is pick up the phone and have a conversation. They don't have to promise anything, guarantee anything. A conversation. Just a simple conversation.
What do you guys think this is going to do to the locker room dynamic? You think that other players might be jealous of what other guys are making now that all this is coming into play?
I think that just like in professional sports, Charlie, you got to know your position. Everybody's not Bo Nix, right? Everybody's not Justin Fields, or everybody's not that. So you got to know your lane and who you are. And I think for the most part, these young student athletes will know. You know, you'll know in team sport, individual sport. There's going to be guys at Stanford that's extremely good in golf that sets them up for an opportunity to go and sign with some golf company that make clubs. And then there'll be other guys that have to stick to what the school supplies for them because that's what it is. And as long as you know that, I don't think there'll ever be any problems.
There's always going to be friction in a locker room because you just have human beings. I mean, Key, you and I both know this. You can have friction in the locker room because somebody's girl dumped you for somebody else. That'll cause friction in the locker room. I'm serious. I mean,
I don't know nothing about all that.
That's something you never have to worry about. That's my life, not your life from that standpoint. But you're always going to have friction in the locker room. And if you're worried about money causing more friction in the locker room, then you don't know the human being. You don't know the human element. There's always going to be something that somebody gets side-eyed about, and then they're going to say, hey, what's going on here? That's not going to cause more of an issue because there's always going to be some kind of friction in a locker room. Now, somebody does not like the fact that somebody is going to benefit more of their name, then you know what, be better. You got to be better as an athlete. You got to be better putting your name out there. If you can't do that, as my dad told me a long time ago, son, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. You got to handle your you problem and not to let it affect me from that standpoint.
Now let me be negative Nate.
Okay.
The only problem I have with this out of everything is the student athletes staying focused. Focus on the job at hand. Because we all know, Charlie, what social media, which social media is
Let's take Ben Simmons as an example. We were just talking about it yesterday. He made the money, and then look what happened.
Social media drives is going to drive a lot of this.
Yep.
Where's your focus?
Yep.
Where's your focus? Not that you're going to stop going to practice because there's an appearance. Not that. More about somebody, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good player that's out there. Just a good player on a team somewhere.
Right.
He tweets out that he got a deal with, or Instagram out that he has a deal with an ice cream company. And then all of a sudden, that individual's watching him and looking at it, because it happens in professional sports with agencies where professional athletes don't like another professional athlete getting something they thought they should have gotten, and they lose focus.
Sure.
We see it in everyday society. People stuck on their damn phones, looking at Instagram, poking and swiping and doing all that sort of stuff. And then all of a sudden, their appearance changed because they saw somebody else's appearance change that monetized that and made money off of it. So they think they're going to do it. That's the only problem that I have with these young student athletes is the focus, because you came to the university to do something, to go to the next level, to the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, track and field, Olympic swimming. Now, all of a sudden, you're getting sidetracked and you're not really focused in on those things. You worried about whether or not you're going to get an endorsement deal.
Here's a look at the notable players selected to the U.S. men's basketball team for the Olympic Games in Tokyo. The team is seeking a fourth consecutive gold medal and will be led by Spurs head coach Greg Popovich. One player you can see absent from this list is the King. Here's Jerry Colangelo on the potentially not seeing LeBron in the Olympics ever again.
You know, Father Time takes its toll. And you guys know that because if you're a human being, your body is built to go so long, depending on what your sport is. And then it's a downhill situation. And LeBron made choices these last couple of Olympics not to participate because he's got a lot of things going on in his life. And so he put in his time. He made a contribution that is appreciated, but I think his time is over.
A lot of things going on might be just a bit of an understatement. Freddie, is it smart to rule out LeBron just yet?
No, it's not smart at all, because LeBron James has done so much for USA Basketball. He's been a great, not just player, but a great ambassador and at times a coach and leader when it comes to USA Basketball. So I could see LeBron James playing for Team USA again as a cap on his career. 4 years from now, I could see him doing that. He won't play as much, of course. He's not going to be out there playing 25, 30 minutes. But I could see him being a part of that team in that kind of advisory role, being a coach on the floor kind of role with younger players who still look up to him. So Jerry Colangelo is not wrong by saying Father Time is undefeated. There's no doubt about that. But LeBron James, he loves his life in the sunshine, and the sunshine's been very, very good to him. So no matter what, that he may be, not maybe, he's at the end of his career, but still has a lot of juice in those legs left. I don't think it's likely over for him being a part of Team USA Basketball. I could see him doing one last hurrah before he goes off into the sunset and does whatever he wants to do once his basketball career is said and done.
No, it's pretty much over with, man. It's a wrap. He's done it already. Like, why do it again to cap what off? I mean, when you think about it, 4 years from now, I just don't see it happening. He's so much, Jake Angelo is 100% right. He got so much other stuff going on, it doesn't interest him enough to do it. I mean, like 4 years from now, I mean, at 40, I think he'll be close to 40 years old. Like, as great as LeBron is and how much we love LeBron and all of those sort of things, it's just not, like, why? What's the reasoning for doing it? To just say that, oh, I finished my career as an Olympian, but I've already got gold medals? What's the point? Well,
LeBron loves himself some LeBron. Key, you know this more than anybody else because
but we all love ourselves. There's no question about it.
Yeah, but it's different with LeBron James from the standpoint of he's always going to make sure his name is going to be out there. Look what he's been able to do during the playoffs.
But Freddie, if Team USA needed anybody right now, it would be LeBron. He would do it right now. They certainly need it right now. 4 years from now, will they need it?
It's not about a need standpoint. It's about a brand standpoint and a name standpoint and keeping your name out there when it comes to USA basketball.
But his name is going to be out there anyway. He doesn't need to capitalize on that.
And he's going to continue to have his name out there to continue to capitalize on that because LeBron James is very good at branding LeBron James. That's everything inside and outside of basketball. Like I mentioned, when it comes to the playoffs this year,
Freddie, it ain't his decision.
I understand it,
but he's going to.
But Key's going to have a hand in that decision because of what he's been able to do in the past with USA basketball.
No, it's not. It won't be his decision 4 years from now. It's the committee's decision 4 years from now.
But if
we can clearly see that. We clearly see that now with Kevin Love.
Right, but
it's the committee's decision.
But LeBron has more stroke with that committee than Kevin Love. If LeBron says, hey, guys, I want to go out with a bang and play on the Olympics one last time, there's not going to be a soul in that committee that's going to turn him down because he's LeBron James.
You're 100% right. But I just don't think that LeBron James would do that and take a spot away from somebody that is more deserving. I don't see him doing that.
I don't think you rule out anything with LeBron James. I'm not saying he's narcissistic and an egoist. You got to have some kind of arrogance and have an ego when you're a great player and you're a once-in-a-lifetime player that LeBron James has been. And anything you can do to further that legacy, even though you don't need to do that, there's certain people that are just wired differently. There's certain people that say, you know what, this would be the perfect way, and then I can go off and do whatever I want outside of basketball. LeBron is very cognizant of his name. He understands exactly what kind of stroke and what kind of electricity that's going to bring to the table.
He's already an international superstar.
But
that's not slowing down anytime soon.
And then the reason you know how you make sure it doesn't slow down, Key, is you continue to have your name being put out there.
It's not going to slow down. Look, Michael Jordan, did that slow down? No.
And LeBron James is this generation's Michael Jordan because look what Michael Jordan did The Last Dance.
It didn't slow down.
But Michael Jordan, The Last Dance, Michael Jordan is always going to make sure he's not going to be forgotten. That's why The Last Dance did such great numbers because there are going to be plenty of people that did not know how great Michael Jordan was. They heard about it, they saw it on YouTube, but then they had a chance to actually see what the fuss was all about with Michael Jordan for a younger generation. LeBron James clearly understands to keep your name going to the younger generation, you always got to let them know exactly how great you were. That'll be another step to doing that. I'm not saying he's going to play basketball and be a dominant player, but I don't think it's really smart to say he's going to be ruled out because LeBron James understands exactly the kind of stroke he's always going to have, being an international man when it comes to inside and outside of sports. And USA Basketball's helped to further that name.
But Freddie,
to me, it would be silly to not think about it.
I take my cue from Jerry Colangelo, somebody who's been dealing with the Olympics in USA Basketball forever. I take my cue from him. He said it's over. And if he's saying it's over, to me, it must be over. Because then you're asking LeBron to flex his muscles just to be self-serving, to play on an Olympic team for marketing purposes, to keep his name out there when he has so much other stuff that will push his name out, from being involved in younger athletes' careers with an agency, to doing movies, to Maverick Carter doing things with him as a business partner, and Rich Paul being his agent. So much other stuff out there that can keep his name in the lights rather than take a spot from a deserving player in the Olympics when I already got a handful of Olympic gold medals.
LeBron has changed his mind before. He can change his mind again. Did I give you Miami, Cleveland, saying he was not going to leave those places?
Man, stop.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
Stop, man. He was playing for it.
Okay. All I'm going to say, the 2024 Olympics are in Paris, so If I'm LeBron,
and only 3 years away,
destination
not 4.
Alone,
Only 3 years
I'll
away.
be there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys.
3 years too, huh?
Let's move
that's
on.
Right.
We still
I forgot
have
about that. Mm-hmm.
a lot more to get to. Keyshawn about to give us his top 5 players that would have made the most money in college football history. Who is number 1, you ask? 15-year NBA career, CP3 has built quite the resume. 2,472 playoff points, 11 All-Star selections, and 10 All-NBA selections. And now, ladies and gentlemen, he can finally add an NBA Finals appearance after the Suns closed out the Clips last night in Game 6. CP3 dominated, dropping 41 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, and 3 steals in the 130-103 win. Not too shabby. We now welcome in Tim Legler for this debate. Freddie, I want to start with you here. After reaching the finals, is CP3 a top 5 point guard all time now?
Well, he was on my list of top 5 point guards of all time. I don't think there's any dispute with me. You can argue with me about it, but he's on that list. I mean, Magic Johnson's my favorite point guard of all time. I think he's the best point guard of all time, but Chris CP3 is on that list with a John Stockton, with a Magic Johnson, with an Oscar Robertson. He's top 5 to me. And even before last night happened, where he put that 41-point piece on them, especially 7 of 8 from the three-point line, the fact that he has been able to still do this in the 16th year and play at that kind of a high level and be that leader that you were hoping to get and you knew you were going to get, but you didn't know what kind of how that was going to manufacture itself. We've seen that when he was with Phoenix and with other teams as well. I did not need to be convinced that Chris Paul was a top 5 point guard of all time. Now, last night, of course, helps that, no doubt about that. But he's always been that pure point guard for me that can control the game, can really get on your last nerve the way he plays defense, does a little things here and there to get under everybody's skin. But last night didn't have to convince me he's a top 5 point guard of all time. I already had that in my mind no matter what happened in this series.
Look, I'm not ready to go there yet. And the reason I'm not ready to go there because he's not done playing. CP3 has at least 3 to 4 more good years left in him. When you mention the names of Magic Johnson and Oscar Robertson and Stockton, you know, you still got, in my opinion, you still can argue the Jason Kidds of the world, right? You still can argue the Steve Nashes of the world. I think Chris Paul has so much more basketball to play before we start saying top 5, top 4, top this. Let that play out. Because, yeah, the body of work that he's done in his 16 years has been there. There's a but in there because he hasn't cashed in that chip yet. And I think once that chip happens for him, it will be clear cut that he is probably a top 5 point guard. Magic Johnson was on our show the other day, and we simply asked Magic if Chris Paul was a top 5 guy, and he kind of, you know, didn't give an answer, kind of said, well, let's wait and see, much like me, because you have to finish the deal. I think, 16 years you would think, okay, yeah, that's finishing the deal. But because he has years left, I want to wait and see.
Yeah, look, here's where I'm at on this conversation. I think one thing sounds like we agree on is this. Magic Johnson is the guy for me. He's the best point guard of all time. This is a subjective conversation, obviously. There's no set criteria here. One of the things that makes it difficult to compare all these guys, the position has changed so dramatically over history. And what the responsibilities of that position are, it's really difficult to compare guys from different eras because the point guards of the modern era are more about guys that can go and get you 25 to 30 on any given night. That wasn't a primary responsibility for most of the point guards historically. When you start talking about a guy like Magic Johnson, you start talking about a John Stockton. I mean, Oscar Robertson put up those kind of numbers, but they didn't think that way back then. Even a guy like Jason Kidd, it was different during his era. It's not the case now. Chris Paul has more of an old school mentality about the position. He's absolutely worthy of being in the debate after Magic. All those other guys, and one guy, by the way, that you guys didn't mention, and I'm just listening to all the names, I think you covered most of them. One guy, I didn't hear his name, was Steph Curry. I think you got to put him also in this list and in this conversation. But again, look at the nature of the way Curry plays. It's totally different than the way Chris Paul, Magic Johnson, Jason Kidd, John Stockton played the position. Damian Lillard is one of the more explosive point guards of our game now. And who knows, after 6-8 years down the road, we might put Damian Lillard in that category. And again, plays the position completely differently. So it's a tough debate. It's a difficult conversation. But I do not have a problem with Chris Paul being in that group of guys when you start making your list 2 through 5.
I just want him to finish the deal, Legs. You're right. And you say we didn't mention Dame, Dollar, or Curry. The reason I wouldn't put Steph in there because he's in a box by himself at the style of play. Like you said, this era of basketball is a little bit different. I mean, if you said to me, Key, pure shooter all time, NBA, I would say Curry. And if you said point guard, I just wouldn't say that, even though he plays the position. It's almost like at the wide receiver position. Guys say he's a great wide receiver. This dude playing the slot, man. He's never caught a ball on the outside a day in his life, but he has 700 career catches all from the slot. So the first thing you say is he's a wide receiver. It's like, no, he's not a wide receiver. He may be listed as a wide receiver, but he is a slot receiver. And so that's kind of how I look at Steph Curry. I look at him in a different box all by itself.
It's funny. I thought about this, Key and Legs, when you mentioned in terms of comparing eras and how the point guard position has changed. And that's why you have these subjective conversations, because it's very hard to compare eras. For example, Drew Pearson waited that long to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. To me, he should have been in the Pro Football Hall of Fame 15 to 20 years ago. But people tried to compare his numbers to other numbers after him. And I think that's where the whole conversation is with Chris Paul and with Magic Johnson, Oscar Robertson. Another guy we forgot about is Isaiah Thomas. To me, Chris Paul is almost like a generation Isaiah Thomas in this day and age, being that old school point guard that can make big shots and was a tough guy and a tough defender. So, yeah, that's why it's hard to compare eras. But there's certain guys that I think can go past that, and that's why I had Chris Paul in my top 5. We look at LeBron James. He's not finished with his career yet, but it's automatically assumed that he's a top 3 player of all time in the NBA in terms of being the greatest of all time. I know it being subjective in terms of being selected with the point guard position and different positions, but you're right, Key. When you have wide receivers, you can try to compare numbers, but it depends on where a guy played or what era he played in. That's why it's hard to try to match Jerry Rice here and Sterling Sharp there and you there and somebody else. It's the same way with the point guard position in the NBA, because Oscar Robertson averaged a triple-double for a whole season. That wasn't done ever again until Russell Westbrook. And then that conversation came about, he's a stats compiler. And think, well, that's stupid. If you're a great player, you're compiling stats. That's exactly what you're doing. So Chris Paul's been able to compile these numbers, and that's why I put him in my list of top 5. But I clearly understand from your point and Leg's point, when you're trying to compare guys in different eras and different styles, it becomes more of a subjective conversation than a truth conversation.
Well, that's why I would say, Legs, I want to know. Go ahead. Go ahead, Lex.
I just want to finish up one thing about this, because this is an important point. Freddie brought up LeBron James' name. Let's be honest here. Let's be honest. LeBron James is a point guard. He's going to go down. He's going to be recorded as a small forward. LeBron James has initiated offense probably 75, 80% of the possessions he's been on the floor in an NBA game. He initiates all offense on the teams he plays on. Like, he played with Kyrie Irving in Cleveland. You going to try to tell me that Kyrie Irving was a point guard on that team? No, LeBron James is the point guard on every team he's played on. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. When the responsibilities are that different, it's hard to label guys and what they are. That's why, for me, clearly Magic was a point guard, and I just think the winning, the playmaking, the ability to take over a game as a scorer if he had to, the way he dominated games as a rebounder, if that's what it took, and he's just mainly the ultimate winner. That's what I view Magic Johnson as, and that's why I would put him number 1. But if we're really talking about the breakdown of how guys play and stylistically and responsibilities, you'll never convince me that LeBron James is not a point guard, because that is the way he has played the position from day one.
But, Legs, that's a special category like Steph Curry. LeBron James goes into a special category. When you talk about pure point, I feel so bad I'm sitting here arguing with an ex-NBA player about the damn position, but oh well. When you think about it, pure point guards, Isaiah Thomas, you know what I'm saying, Magic Johnson, John Stockton, those are pure point guards. Everybody else that we're talking about, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Dame Lillard, they're in a special category, in my opinion. I can't put them in the point guard category because they do so much, so many different ways.
Well, you know why? Because the NBA is positionless basketball now, and that's why. That's why the lines get blurred. Because Lex and I had this conversation a couple of years ago about how positionless basketball has really blurred the lines in terms of who's effective doing what and how effective doing what. For example, Steph Curry 15, 20 years ago is a shooting guard. Or if he's going to play the point guard, he's not going to do what he does with the basketball. Lex and I talked about this, Key. That really started in the early 90s when Kevin Johnson started being a 20 and 10 guy. When he played with Phoenix, Mark Price was doing the same thing with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavaliers, all of a sudden they were asking their point guards to be, you can be our top scorer on our basketball team and our top assist player. That's when that line really started to shift with the NBA in the point guard position. Magic was doing it differently, but he had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and guys like that, and then he became more of a scoring point guard. So now we have positionless basketball in the NBA. It really blurs the lines more than ever when it comes to point guard, shooting guard, small forward, etc.
Hey, last point, if I can make this about Chris Paul, keep this in perspective. You think about this 10 years ago, there was a debate in the NBA who the best point guard was. It was a Chris Paul, Darren Williams conversation, and it was really split down the middle. There were a couple years in there you could have made the strong case that Darren Williams was the best point guard in the NBA. Think about this, though. Darren Williams retired 4 years ago. Chris Paul is playing maybe the most important and meaningful basketball of his career and the best basketball of his career to drop 41 in a Game 6 to get to his first finals. And he's not slowing down anytime soon. He's got a few more years in the tank. I think that is a very strong argument. Longevity of greatness at the position plays into it. And Chris Paul to be doing this at his age,
36.
and still going out there, being able to take over games as a bucket getter, as a floor leader, coming up with a key defensive play, being the IQs of the operation, getting the best out of young teammates like he has with Booker and Ayton. He's in that conversation. He's in the debate. He's absolutely worthy of it. It's subjective, but for me, it's not subjective at number one. I think that's where Freddie and I agree. I'm not sure about Key, but Magic is the number one guy for me.
Absolutely.
After that, have at it.
Absolutely number one guy.
Yeah, well, players around the league were giving him his flowers last night. We saw Steph Curry tweet out his greatness. We saw Ja Morant, a lot of others as well. But just looking at stats alone, Chris Paul is one of the 2 point guards of all time to be top 5 in assists and top 50 in points. John Stockton is the other. Legs, thank you so much. We always appreciate you. Good to see you.
Thanks very much.
All right, let's keep it moving. Tim Tebow and Reggie Bush are 2 of the greatest college football players of all time and would have made bank should the NCAA ruling came sooner. But would someone have made more money? He has someone in mind when First Take continues.
Don't start twisting my...
His board of directors decided yesterday to officially suspend rules prohibiting athletes from selling the rights to their names, images, and likenesses. Every NCAA athlete in the country will now be able to make money from endorsements and through a variety of other ventures starting today. We love this. Key, I heard you've got a little something for us now that this ruling has come down.
Well, yeah, we're going to take a look at it. We're going to go with my top 5 all-time college football players who could have made money. Now, these are some names you may know and some names you may not know. But these are guys in regions or part of the country on Power 5 teams that I believe strongly would have cashed in if the NC2A didn't try and stop it. Number 5, Rocket Ishmael, Notre Dame. Think about when the Rocket came onto the scene at Notre Dame. Just crazy. The name, the speed, everything. The big playmaking ability. He had a little personality and some swag along to go with his brother, the bomb, the missile. You package that up, and it's Notre Dame football on NBC. Money to be made by the Rocket. Number 4, the Boz, Brian Bosworth, Oklahoma, another powerhouse school, the Mohawk. He was the first player that I can remember that had some sort of swag and personality outside of Deion Sanders on the defensive side of the ball. Eventually, he flamed out in the National Football League, but he was one of the first players to try and market himself in college football. Number 3, Tim Tebow. How could you not have Tim Tebow on here? Think about it. The SEC country, the region, all the way through Florida, through Mississippi, LSU country. He's eating all that up. He's going to take some of the ACC as well. And we saw what he was able to do and cash in when he was drafted in the National Football League, sitting at number 3. Number 2, hometown hero, Reggie, my man Bush. Reggie Bush, most dynamic college football player I've seen until Devontae Smith of Alabama came along. Heisman Trophy winner, personality, nice-looking brother, speaks well, intelligent, smart, you name it. And he was dominant. And he's at a Power 5 school in a big marketplace in Southern California. Why not? And then number 1, that's easy. That's me, Keyshawn Johnson in the third person. That's easy as hell. Number 1 pick overall, dominated college football at its highest, finest, and everything. Nice-looking brother, can speak well, did all sorts of things. Made big-time money when he signed big-time shoe deals coming out of college. Didn't have to do it at USC because they didn't allow us to. But imagine if Reggie Bush, myself, Tim Tebow, Brian Bosworth, and Rocket Ismail had the ability to cash in college. Just imagine that, Freddie. It would have been crazy.
Imagine that, Freddie. Imagine it.
Well, I'm not surprised Key put himself number one because he believes in himself. So I'm okay with that from that standpoint. But Key, no Peyton Manning on your list?
No, I couldn't put Peyton Manning on my list. Not at that time. You got to remember, Peyton Manning's college career at Tennessee was okay. He didn't really start to become a big-time personality in the pro until he got to the pros in Indy. He wasn't one of those names in college football that stood out to you like that. It was like Peyton Manning because he was around Charles Woodson. I could put Charles Woodson in there. There's a couple other guys, and I'm gonna forget some names, no question about it.
I hear you.
We only have 5.
But Key, they've named kids after Peyton in the South. Boys and girls.
But I can't put Peyton Manning ahead of Tim Tebow. I can't put him ahead of Brian Bosworth or Rocket Ismail. And I sure in the hell ain't putting him ahead of me. And so
we know
when you look at it, and you say to yourself, and I'm talking about not a regional perspective on some of these names either. Brian Bosworth is going to cover all of Texas, all of that Midwest. He's going to gobble all that up because he did, and he wasn't even being paid for it. Rocket Ismail was on NBC. Think about it. We woke up on Saturday mornings to watch the Rocket go off. And then clearly, Reggie Bush, myself out west in big marketplaces in Southern California at a big university. And then again, Tim Tebow. I mean, come on, you try to argue against Tim Tebow, they're going to come and get you. Social media, they're going to eat you alive.
Okay. Well, you also forgot some basketball players.
Well, this was football.
All right. Well,
they said football list. They didn't say basketball. I got to listen now. You're going to be on the show with me. You got to listen.
That's true. All right. So I'm listening. So now you got to listen to my basketball list. You have your football list. I have my basketball list. At number 5, I have Christian Laettner. I mean, that guy's polarizing as he was. He would have made so much money in this day and age endorsing any product. Patrick Ewing, number 4, because Georgetown, the Big East, he really made the Big East matter on a national level. Zion Williamson at number 3. I mean, come on. He was a YouTube sensation before we even knew that he was going to go to Duke, and he made himself mad even before he had his name. But the top 2 are right there. Wilt Chamberlain, no one had ever even seen anything like that. I can't even imagine how much money he would have made even back then. And to stay in your neck of the woods, California, the artist formerly known as Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he was that recruit that everybody wanted in the country. And then he goes from New York, the biggest city in the world, to the second biggest city in the country, Los Angeles. I can't even imagine with the kind of money and playing for UCLA, winning national championships and being a 3-time Finals 4 MVP. I can't even imagine the kind of staggering money that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar / Lou Alcindor would have made if this was happening in his day and age back then.
Not a bad list, but you got too many bigs on there, man. Bigs don't sell. Jay Will was on here with me. He would be mad at you. You got to get some little dudes on there.
That's okay if Jay Will is mad at me, but those guys have personality.
What happened to AI? Come on.
Yeah, AI had personality, but I think the whole John Thompson thing, and also with AI, he had some stumbles off the basketball court back in high school. That might have lessened any kind of earning potential that he would have had. Patrick Ewing would have been a better choice for me from Georgetown because not only playing for that program, being a big man who was a villain, but also the first Jamaican player to really have on a national level. He would have crossed so many different paths from that standpoint.
You forgot about Melo? You forgot about Melo?
1 year at Syracuse. I know they won a national championship, but if he had played 3 years at Syracuse, then it's a different conversation.
Hold on. Now I'm really get you.
Okay.
Now you forgot about Ball at UCLA. Him and his daddy orchestrating everything. Think about that.
I get it, but his dad had terrible shoes. That reduced his earning power and earning potential. Would have never happened.
I'm still waiting on my shoes, by the way.
See? You just made my point right there. You're still waiting on his shoes.
You got some nice shoes on today, though.
Yeah, I saw those. Yeah, I saw your shoes.
Let's backtrack. Let's get this man some endorsement deals. Make up for lost time. What do you say about that?
Well,
no.
I'm straight.
Are you saying no to money right now? Okay,
no,
I will take the endorsement
I ain't
deal.
begging. I ain't
Whoever
gonna beg.
wants me, you can have me.
Charlie, if I got a beg, it ain't worth it.
That's true.
Okay.
I want them to come to me. I don't have to beg for it. I'm with Key on that one.
I'll beg. At this point, I'm not above anything. If it's money, I will take it. Okay, guys, let's leave it there because, look, that was a really fun conversation. But have you heard of this guy's name? Mac Jones? Who? Mac Jones? Yes. Will he wind up being the best Alabama QB in the NFL over both Tua and Jalen Hurts? The guys debate it coming up. Keep it locked. You want to make any callbacks?
No, VY is look. When I put this list together, I put some thought into it because Deion Sanders in everybody's mind should be on the list. But if you think about it, Freddie, them folks that head up market departments back then, they wasn't putting no damn prime on no billboards and stuff because of the thought process. He was too far ahead of his swag. He was so far ahead of the game.
They didn't know what
they
to do
were
with
not
it.
going to do with it. They just imagine Prime looking like Prime looked with the Jerry curl, with the gold chains, the swag that we like. They wouldn't know what to do with it. He wasn't going to be able to make that type of money, no way. But now it's different.
Yeah, of course.
It's different because the world is different. And VY, man, I can't put everybody on the damn list. And I wasn't going to leave myself off. And I wasn't going to leave Reggie Bush off.
That's a fair point about Deion, but he had one of the favorite lines in the history of the NFL draft. He said the Detroit Lions decided to draft him. He was asked for so much money they had to put him on layaway. One of the great lines in the history of anybody that did not want to go to a certain team in the NFL draft. But you're right about that would have been tough for Florida State to try to make that work the way Deion Sanders looked back then and try to make that acceptable to have him branding somebody's product.
Yeah, they would. It would have been really, really tough for the marketing people to try and sell that because they was afraid of it anyway. It's just that's the reality of it.
Times have changed, that is for certain. Okay, guys, let's get to our next topic. Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones were once teammates on an Alabama team that won a national title. Now they all are on separate teams with Tua and Hurts as projected starters, while Mac Jones in a QB battle with Cam Newton in New England. The good news, according to Hurts, patience is a virtue that Mac has a lot of.
Mac had a very unique college career where he had to stay patient, and it worked out for him, and I'm happy it did. He was able to watch me, Tua, go through that, get him some burn here and there, and ultimately when it was his time, he took off with it, and now he has a great opportunity for his future.
Okay, Key, which former Alabama quarterback would you want repping your franchise, Mac, Tua, or Jalen?
Ooh. All three of them need time. There's no question about it. But I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts has a unique ability at the quarterback position and where the quarterback position is in today's NFL moving forward. When you get into trouble, can I get myself out of it? I don't necessarily know in the National Football League, not in college football, that Mac Jones can get himself out of trouble. Meaning when the passing shuts down, can I pull it down and go get me 10, get me 15 on a consistent basis? We see it. We see Patrick Mahomes. We see Lamar. We see these guys now that can do those sort of things, even to a degree Baker Mayfield. I don't know that Mac Jones can. In fact, a category came up or somebody said something about Mac Jones' ability in the pocket. They said during the draft process, he's very athletic in the pocket. What the hell does that mean? Athletic in the pocket? I've never heard that before. So they're trying to justify he can move around. He can't. Doesn't mean he won't be a good quarterback at some point in time for the New England Patriots. But no, I certainly would go with Jalen Hurts. Tua has a long ways to go as well. There's still question marks on whether or not he could be an NFL quarterback at the level that they're looking for him to be. And there's question marks on all three of these guys, rightfully so, because all of them are young. But I just think Jalen Hurts has some ability to get out of harm's way when he needs to.
I agonized over this between basically two guys, Jalen Hurts and Mac Jones, because I don't think Jalen Hurts gets enough credit for how talented of a quarterback that he is, and also having the unselfishness to take a step back when Tua became the golden boy for Alabama and beat him out of his spot. Then he goes to Oklahoma in that offense. Look how he dialed it up. To me, he should have been a first-round quarterback, but we know how those things can go sometimes, depending on what player personnel people need when it comes to the NFL. I'm going to choose Mac Jones slightly. I believe he's more athletic than people give him credit for. Although, Key, I'm with you. Athletic in the pocket, I don't know what the blazes that means either. Either you're athletic or you're not athletic. Whether you're in the pocket, outside the pocket, that shouldn't matter. But I just think the kind of moxie that he possesses and the accuracy that he possesses and the personality that he has, and now he's with a football team that is going to allow him to be a little bit more of Mac Jones than they allowed Tom Brady to be in the 20 years he played the New England Patriots. I think we're going to see that Mac Jones. We won't see it this year. Unless Cam Newton completely spits the bit, and I don't think he's going to. We're not going to see Mac Jones being a starting quarterback until next year, so that time element is on his side. But once he gets into that lineup, I think he's going to be the next great quarterback in the National Football League. And I think Jalen Hurts is going to be a terrific quarterback in the National Football League. Mac Jones in a better situation to do that than Jalen Hurts. But repping my team right now because of his personality and having that chip on his shoulder as well, like Jalen Hurts, it's tough for me, but it's a razor's thin edge. But I'm going to take Mac Jones. That I would want representing my team as a franchise quarterback more than the other two right now.
And there's nothing, look, with these guys, there's no wrong answer. There's no question about it. I just look at where the NFL is today. And I know that a lot of people think that the New England Patriots want to go back to this Tom Brady-style offense that they used to have back in the day, and that's why they selected Mac Jones at the quarterback spot. I get it. I understand it. I just think that when you get rid of a number 2 pick overall in Carson Wentz because you decided that Jalen Hurts is your future, that says something. That certainly says something. You didn't try to fix the issues and the problems with Carson Wentz. You moved on from him because you saw something in Jalen Hurts that he could continue to get better. Much like you mentioned, leadership capabilities, patience as well, sitting behind a guy in terms of, first of all, a lot of people don't realize that he actually was the number 2 quarterback going into his freshman season when he had to sit into the second half of the USC game when they played him in Dallas his freshman year. So he had patience there. Then he gets benched for the national championship game. Then he decides he's not going to pout. He's going to sit around and be patient and wait, and they're going to eventually need him at some point in time. He comes back, he deals, they move on. And then he transfers to Oklahoma, and then he lights it on fire, takes time to figure out what Oklahoma's system is all about, becomes a second-round pick, goes to a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, starts sitting behind Carson Wentz, and then eventually takes over. Didn't have major success. I mean, how could you, given the fact that you had no offensive weapons, the offensive line was decimated to a degree, and then coaching issues, all those sort of things, and yet and still, you still standing tall and potentially could be the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, even though they may try to open up some sort of competition with the quarterback and Joe Flacco, and he'll probably hold him off, much like he has other quarterbacks in the past.
Key, it says a lot about Jalen Hurts that the Eagles chose him over a coach and a quarterback. They chose him over a coach that led them to a Super Bowl and a quarterback that before he tore his ACL was going to be the MVP in the league when it comes to Carson Wentz. That says a lot about Jalen Hurts from the standpoint that you're going to need that with the Philadelphia Eagles. So, yeah, he doesn't mind putting his face out there, being front and center, because he's been waiting for this opportunity, and he wants to show people that, yeah, it didn't end well Alabama in terms of on the field, but look what I did at Oklahoma, and I'm going to make sure it's going to work here from that standpoint. Mac Jones, they're similar and dissimilar, meaning Mac Jones and Jalen Hurts, and that's because, as Jalen Hurts said, Mac Jones had to learn how to be patient. Who to learn better from than a guy in Jalen Hurts who really had to exhibit patience when his job was taken away and Tua Tagovailoa and beat him out, fair and square. Summer camp did that, became the starting quarterback for Alabama. It could have been very easy for Jalen Hurts to say, forget this. You know what? Screw you guys. He didn't do that. He said, I'm going to be a good teammate. I'm going to be a better teammate than people can have anticipated. But when my time comes, I'm going to step into the fire and be ready to do that. And he did that at Oklahoma. That says a lot for Jalen Hurts that Philadelphia looked at him and said, we're going to bring in a new coach, but we're not keeping the old quarterback. Carson Wentz, you want to pout and sulk because things didn't go your way? Beat it. Get on out of here. We'd rather have a guy that we know is going to be all in with this football team than somebody who decided not to be all in because things were not in his favor. Don't think for 1 second Mac Jones did not learn a lot about that he's going to bring to the New England Patriots.
And I think Mac Jones will bring something to the New England Patriots. He's going to have to wait his turn, though, because I think Cam Newton will have a resurgence based on everything that they've done and surrounded him with better players than he had last year. There is no more COVID for him. So that set aside, I just look at Jalen Hurts' ability to continue to grow in the National Football League. And when you look at the National Football League and you look at the quarterback position, there are not many statues still at the quarterback spot in the National Football League. All of them, even Sam Darnold can move around. Zach Wilson can move around. Daniel Jones can move around. Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, all of these guys at that quarterback spot can get out of harm's way. I don't necessarily know that when everything comes to bear and the pressure comes off those edges and up the gut in the middle, that Mac Jones will be able to do those sort of things. Nice kid and all, nice guy.
Nice kid.
But you said a guy who you would want to be a part of your franchise, and I just think is Jalen Hurts.
I think Mac Jones is going to surprise you, Key, by being a little bit more athletic than people are either giving him credit for. I'm not saying he's going to go.
Hey, you ain't going to get me going that direction.
That's fine. But I think Mac Jones, when he gets on the starting field and becomes a starting quarterback and shows that athleticism inside and outside the pocket, is going to surprise people like you and other people out there, because I don't think he gets enough credit for having that ability, not just being an accurate passer, but being able to slide in the pocket and get to those open spots and get those open lanes to throw to wide receivers and make those kind of plays. Now, yeah, at Alabama, they had a star-studded team where he didn't have to do that as much, but when he had to, he's able to make those kind of plays. I think he'll be able to transfer that to the next level in the National Football League, especially in that system in New England.
Okay, well, you know who I want to surprise us?
Who?
Carson Wentz, when he bounces back in a huge way for the Indianapolis Colts. Go Horse. Okay, we'll leave it there. Last word. You're going to want to stick around for our next debate. We're going to debate the more impressive playoff debut, Devin Booker or Trae Young.